we might end up going back to talking about chemo and cancer and those sorts of things, but now that you've brought up the Tour de France of 2019, it's a different scenario for you this year. Last year you were chasing the yellow jersey with Richie, with BMC, you've changed teams, and tomorrow, there's, in my outsider appraisal from looking from afar, am I right in saying that we could see a big surprise from someone like Jasper Philipsen? Is that putting too much pressure on a young kid?
Yeah, because he's actually been brought into the Tour line-up to ride for Christophe.
Okay.
Because Gaviria's bad knee meant he's out of the Tour, which means Alex would be by himself in the Tour de France, so we brought Jasper in, to give him some support in the sprints. And you're right, it could be a surprise. It's going to be a hard-fought sprint into Brussels tomorrow, but that last couple of kilometres runs uphill slightly at 2%, and it sounds like it's going to be a bit of a power sprint, which is good for Christophe.
It's funny, isn't it? We can talk about illness and coming to terms with how the things that you've got to overcome, but as soon as I talk to you about bike racing, you're straight into talking about 2% gradients and who's going to lead out who and all those sorts of things. It never escapes you, does it? After your racing career, let's just sort of backtrack a little. You had a little hiatus where you basically readjusted to life after being a bike rider, and then you came back as a DS for Lotto, probably predictor at the time.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's clear that your passion for it never went away. How does that last for so long? I love cycling, it's obvious, we know that, we talk about it all of the time, but is there ever a time where you wish you just took up surfing and were just lying under a palm tree in Bali somewhere?
No, I don't think there's ever been a time like that for me where I wished I was out of it. When I was out of cycling, then I was wishing I was back in it again, but when I stopped cycling at the end of 92, in the next 10 years, the world of cycling was going through some pretty big changes. Not only with, international sponsors, the whole doping scene, and, I was very lucky to come back in 2005 as a 45-year-old to get a job at a World Tour team as Director Sportif. That was just a stroke of luck, and we all need that in our lives somewhere. We need a stroke of luck. But, that time out was very much, I missed the sport, but there weren't the opportunities to allow me to come back into it. And when I did come back in, I was so full of, motivation to go for it again. I think that's been my driving force all of those years. But look, I've been in Belgium for 40 years. My wife said to me the other day, maybe you need to, start to culture some other hobbies apart from cycling, but there is nothing else in my life. It's my work, it's my hobby, it's my love, it's what drives me, it's what I'm interested in. So, as long as I can be involved and as long as I can be riding my bike, that'll be, the focus of my life.
When I talk about Allan Peiper, I consider you to be one of the key pioneers of making cycling popular in Australia. Mm-hmm. And although you've got a strong Belgian connection, you're very much an Aussie. And when you look at how the sport's evolved since those difficult days of you coming over as a young man to Europe and plying the trade, do you now look at what's happening in Australian cycling, where there's an Australian team that's won a Grand Tour, where there's World Champions and Tour de France champions, and all of these things have happened in the time since you've raced? What would really make you feel like cycling has reached that kind of nirvana that exists around the sport in Belgium, back in your homeland?
I think realistically, if we look at the state of Australian cycling now, pro cycling at least, we have the Tour Down Under, we have the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Classic, we have the Sun Tour, which has still been around for a long time, but is also functioning at a much higher level than it was. I think that sense of Australian cycling is really, really good. And I saw Mike Tomalaris last night on Belgian TV. They were interviewing him, and he was talking about, that possibly 1 million people were watching the Tour de France back in Australia, and that people in Belgium need to take into consideration that was 1 o'clock at night. Mm. So the interest is really high there. So, when we consider that the sport is basically centred in Europe, I think, where we are in Australia at a professional level of cycling and cultural interest in cycling is already pretty high. I don't know that there's so many other things we could scale in Australia to be even higher or have more awareness in Australia. But it's really fantastic to see the evolution of so many good riders, coming into Europe and into the Tour de France. And what they said on Belgian television last night, we've had 8 yellow jersey wearers, and hopefully Caleb Ewan may be the 9th tomorrow in Brussels. But it really shows the development of cycling in Australia in the last 30 years at least.